Hello everyone, how are you? I hope you are doing great and welcome to the part 3 of Java Basic series. Now, if you haven't watched our part 1 and part 2 yet, please make sure you watch them. Okay, now in our part 3, we are going to learn about the classes and objects in a very detailed way. If you remember, in our part 2, we have learnt about the classes and objects basics, right? Means how to create a class, how to create an object out of it, and we also learnt about the Java basic structure. Now, in our part 3, we are going to learn in a detailed way of class and objects. But before jumping into it, let's quickly recap what we have learned in our part 2. Okay. Now, the first thing we have learned is about the Java basic structure, right? What is this Java basic structure? Now, in every Java code, if you take every Java code, it contains of two mandatory things. That is a class and a main method. Here the class name can be anything. I am giving it as demo. And inside it, we have a main method, that is public static void main. And we have two arguments that are string and args. Please don't get confused by thinking about what is this string and args. I will explain about them in a separate video. Okay. Now this is what the Java basic structure is. Every Java code contains two things. One is public class demo, which is a default class, and the class name can be anything. And other thing is we have a main method, which is public static void main and string arguments. This is the Java basic structure. Now, apart from it, we also learnt about how to create a class and object, right? How to create a class. The class can be created by a class keyword followed by the class name. Here the class name can be anything. I am giving it as car. Okay. Now, how to create an object for this class? We have learnt it, right? How to create it? The class name, which is car, and the object specifier. This can be anything. I am giving it as C here. And we have to use new keyword and again the class name of. This is how we create an object for a class. But I said other thing, if you remember it, the object for this car class should not be created inside the class, but it should be created inside the main method. Exactly. For suppose we have created a class car here, the object related to this class should not be created inside this class. It should be created inside the main method. So that let's remove that from here. Let's create that object here. Car C is equal to new car of. Now, for suppose we have another class. Let's think that we have a class bike. Okay. Now, how to create an object for it? We know how to create an object, but the where we should create the object for it? Inside the main method, right? So let's create it. Bike B is equal to new bike of. It's good, right? Now we have learned about the Java basic structure and how to create a class and how to create an object for this class. And the object for this class should be inside the main method. This is the thing what we have learned in our part 2. Now let's get more deeper into the concepts of the class and objects. Okay. First let me remove all of this and let's create a class here. The class name should be car. Anything I'm giving it as car. Okay. Now in our previous class we saw that we created a class and we created an object for this class. But if you remember, we have created nothing inside this class car, right? And do you think there should be nothing inside the class? No, right? There are two main things inside the class. The first thing is we have variables, and the second thing is we have methods inside the class. We have two things inside the class that are variables and methods. And the variables which we create inside the class are called as instance variables. Okay? The variables which we create inside the class are known as instance variables, and the variables which we create inside these methods are known as local variables. Okay, you are getting it right. Inside class we have two main things, those are variables and methods. The variables which we declare inside this car class are known as instance variables, and the variables which we declare inside these methods are known as local variables. Okay, remember these points. And remember also one thing, always remember in Java it's very good to mention the variables as private and the methods as public. Okay, before creating the variable we should mention it as private. Okay, it's private, not private. And before creating a method we should mention it as public. Please remember these points. Now let's create variables and methods inside this class car. Okay, let's create them. Now I want to create a variable. What I said, you remember, right? A variable should be declared as private. Private int n is equal to 5. Right? I think you are good about how to create a variable. It's a basic thing. And if you're not aware about it, you can find many videos on YouTube how to create a variable in Java. Okay. Now I will create another variable here. Private string a is equal to, let's give as Java here. Okay. Now what are these variables called? These variables are called as instance variables. Why? Because we are creating this inside the class. Okay, and we should mention as private because these are the variables. Right? Now let's create a method. How to create a method? I said, right, for method we need to use public. So that public, and we have to use a return type, whether it is int or string, anything. Okay, let's give us int here, and we have to name a method. The name can be anything. I'm giving it as add here. Okay, and inside this parenthesis we can have arguments or we cannot have arguments. It's based on the code we are developing. Okay, now this is the method. This is how we create a method, but we are getting some error right here. What is it? That this method must return a result of type int. When we are using int here, we should return something, not something, but it's based on the code we are developing. For removing of error, let me return 0 here. Okay, you can see that, you can see, right, the error is removed. Sorry, yes, the error is removed, right? And I want to mention another thing here. Int s is equal to 5. Now what is this variable is called? This variable is called as local variable because we are mentioning it inside the method, right? I think you got the basics about how to create a variables inside the class and how to create a methods inside the class, right? Now what I want to do is I want you to introduce to a basic Java code, which is nothing but adding two numbers, which will improve the grip on classes and objects and methods. So let's dive into it. Let's create a basic addition of two numbers. Okay, for that we need a public class demo. Okay, and another thing is what we need a main method, right? It's public static void main, and we have string aux. Okay, this is main method. Now this addition of two numbers code, I'm going to do this in two ways, using a normal way and using classes, objects and methods. Okay, first let's do it in a normal way. How to do it in a normal way? I am declaring two variables, int a is equal to 5, int b is equal to 6. Let's say I want to add 5 and 6, so that I am mentioning it in a variable. Now I am declaring a result variable which will store the addition of these two. Okay, now simple. What we have to do? System.out.println. We need to print this result, right? Sorry. Now let's save this and let's run this. Now before running Java code, we should compile it. How to compile it? It's Java C space the file name dot Java. What is file name here? Demo. Right? This gets compiled. Now we should run it. It's Java space file name. It's demo. Now you can see the result right here, 11. Now what I want to do is I want to add other two numbers. Then what should we do? We should declare other two variables and we should add them. I want addition of other two numbers. Again we have to declare other two variables. So that by doing this, the length of the code increases and the efficiency of the code decreases. So that to avoid the inefficiency of code, we will introduce class methods and objects. Let's see how we do that. Let's remove all this code now. Let me again create it. Public class demo, and other thing is public static void main string and args. Right? In our previous code we have created variables here and we have also done addition here, right? But now I'm creating a class. Let's name this class as calculator. Anything, I'm naming it as calculator. Okay, now inside I'm declaring a variable. It's private int result. Okay, now inside it I'm creating a method. How to create method? Public access specifier. Another thing is we are adding, so that we have to return int. Now we have to give some name. Let's give add, because we are adding two numbers, and we are adding two numbers, so that in these arguments we need to declare two variables. Let's declare int n1 comma int n2. Okay, now I declared it. Now I want the addition of these two numbers, right? So that what I have to do is, now result is equal to n1 plus n2, and what I want to do, system.out.println, I want to print this result. Then we are getting other error, right? What is that? It must return. What we have to return here? We have to return the result. Simple thing, we have completed. Now we have done addition in this add method, right? Now but we need to execute from main method, right? Every Java code start executing from its main method, but our main method is empty. Now how do you think it will execute? So that we have to call this method inside our main method. How to call? In every other programming languages we call as by declaring the method name, but it's giving some error, right? What error it is? Now we are calling this add method, right? We have this add method in which class? We have add method in calculator class, but we are using it in demo class. It's not possible, right? So to avoid this, we need to create a object for that calculator class. It's calculator c is equal to new calculator of. Now we created a object. Now we should call the method using this object specifier, that is c dot add, and inside it we need to pass two things, because we have to add two numbers, right? Let's pass 5 comma 6. Okay, I'm going to save it. Now let's try to run this. Let's first compile it. The compilation is done. Let's run it, and you can see the answer is 11, right? Now in our previous code, when we want to add other two numbers, we want to declare other two variables, right? But here we should not do that. We can add something like, again, c dot add. I want to add other two numbers, those are 2 and 3, let's suppose. Now I'm going to save it again. Let's compile it again and run it again. You can see, right, we have got two things, 11 and 5. What is the difference between our previous code and this code? In our previous code, for adding other two numbers, we need to declare variables again and again, which improves the code length and which decreases the efficiency. But we have only declared the variables once, and we are using this many times without creating a new variable. Now this is the use of creating classes, methods and object. I hope you are good with it, and in our next class I will explain about this classes and objects. The next class will be the last class of class and objects. I will create other 3-4 methods here, and let's call all the methods here, and also explain how to call the display class. Okay, thank you.